I couldn't even imagine quitting right now and then thinking for the rest of my life, like, I wonder how far I could have gone. Like, I'm gonna run this till the wheels fall off.
I've been knocked down too much to knock it back up, and I bring the house down whenever the odds are stacked up against me. I know no weapon formed shall prosper. It's tempting to quit now, but I'm refusing the feeling like a champion. I can't sleep no ambient, feeling every beat I'm landing on, to infinity and beyond. This ain't like I work for this. I'ma show y'all what urgent is. Never been way more certain, man. Ain't nobody more deserving, man. Undisputed, undisputed, undisputed.
No, it seems really good to be Lauren Murphy these days.
It is, yeah. I'm having a time. Yeah.
No, so, welcome to this show. The reason I want you on specifically as well, like fighters like you. I mean, we have all kinds of people on, like there's actors, entrepreneurs, musicians, artists, everything, and we're gonna start to have more fighters on because I think fighters are, like, in a special way, are also very entrepreneurial, and in the way that you pave your own path, that you have to create your own sort of stream of income, and the more you fight, the more you make. It's not like you're on on a salary,
Right. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and just it is actually you're fighting for your money and you're fighting for your future, right? And
Yeah.
you are someone who is very down to earth. You seem that way, at least, and yeah, and now you're coming into your own, later on in your career. So, and making all these changes, you seem to have figured it out now. So, tell me, how has it been? How has 2020 been for you?
Well, 2020 was a great year for us. I know it was a pretty difficult year worldwide, but for Joe and myself personally, we had one of the best years of our lives. We moved to Houston like in November of 2019, and then we fought 3 times in 2020. Joe had some really good jiu-jitsu matches that he won. We bought a house in Houston. We just, like, 2020 just really took off for us. It was a really great year. There was some, like, hardships too, but mostly it was all up, up, up.
Yeah, like everybody, it is. For us, I would say the same. At the beginning, it starts with adversity, with all these projects falling out. Everything is locked. Like, I mean, I'm sure Houston is still open, right?
Yeah. Texas is I don't want to say they never really shut down, because they did, but they definitely they were one of the states here in the US that was probably the least shut down.
Which probably gives you hope that you might fight at home at some point.
Yeah, so they said UFC 262 is coming to Houston, so that's awesome. We're definitely going to be at that. So whether I'm there as a fighter or a fan, either way, I'm good. And then, who knows? But it looks like they're going to go to Florida. They're going to go to Texas. I'm guessing they'll probably end up in Arizona at some point. Arizona is another state that I would guess would open up quick. But yeah, hopefully they do come around to Houston several times this year, I hope.
Awesome. And maybe for a title fight for you.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
That
would
is like
the cherry on the cake of my year.
So you grew up in Anchorage, Alaska.
Yeah, I did.
And
yeah.
Anchorage, Alaska is it's very far away from everything. I take it.
It is.
How do you end up from Anchorage, Alaska to fighting in front of tens of millions of viewers in Abu Dhabi on an island designated for fighters?
Yeah, I ask myself that all the time. No, I mean, it definitely didn't happen overnight. It was about 10 years between Anchorage and Abu Dhabi. So it took a while, but I met my husband in Anchorage. He was training at the same gym I was training at. And actually, we were both practicing MMA at the time. And then he was in the Air Force, and he was stationed in Anchorage. And so after we started dating, we'd been dating a while. He actually got stationed in Florida, and he had to move. And so I was like, well, I'm going with you. So he got to Florida, and a coach of mine had moved to Houston from Anchorage. So I started training in Houston. Like, I would just drive to Houston from Panama City, where he was stationed. Mm-hmm. So we did that for about 2 years, and that's when I fought in Invicta. Mm-hmm. And I just kind of traveled back and forth between Houston and Panama City. And then he got out of the Air Force, and we decided to move to Arizona to train at the lab. And then, and so we stayed there about 4 or 5 years. And then we just recently moved back to Houston last year.
Okay. That's nice. And but did you ever, because you got into sports or became an athlete, a professional athlete, very late on, right? So were you ever into sports at all, or from in the beginning, early days?
I played softball when I was 7.
Mm-hmm.
Like I hated it. I wasn't particularly good at it. It was like, pee-wee softball or something. So and then I didn't play any sports growing up, like, really like through elementary school and junior high. Junior high, I didn't play any sports. And then in high school, I didn't play any sports. I didn't work out or anything. Somewhere around in high school, I started like going to like a gym, like a Planet Fitness, so I'd seen a gym before, but I just go kind of lift on my own. Like I just wanted to be skinny and I wasn't really serious about it. I would run sometimes. So I went through periods where I would like work out a lot, but they were just self-made workouts that you could just do anywhere. Yeah.
And then what happened along the way? Like,
well, my son, I had a kid and my son was 8. When I was 27, I guess he would have been maybe even 9 or 10, I guess. But yeah. So anyway, so I must have been 26 and he was 7 or 8. And anyway, I wanted him to have martial arts experience. I had like never done martial arts, but I grew up, in the 80s and 90s watching movies like Kickboxer and The Karate Kid and Bloodsport and all that stuff, So I was like, well, I could, maybe I could take him to a martial arts school and he could get some confidence, make some friends, learn some discipline, like all the good stuff that comes with martial arts. And I literally thought like, well, it's too late for me, but maybe he could be able to do something cool. I didn't even know what I was talking about. Like I didn't know what I even wanted. And so I opened up a phone book and I kind of put my finger in and it landed on a Gracie Baja, which I didn't know what it was. So I called them. They said it was jiu-jitsu. And I was like, well, what's that? And they said, well, it's like submissions, ground fighting. It's fighting on the ground, like wrestling and joint locks and chokes. And I was kind of like, I don't know. I kind of want to like, like hit some stuff or you want
to strike.
Yeah, something. I don't know. And the lady told me on the phone, she was like, she said, well, most fights end up on the ground. And so it's a really good, like, self-defense art. I thought, oh, well, that's true. Like all the fights I've seen on YouTube, they always end up rolling around on the ground or like at the bar or something, those guys always end up on. I thought, well, that's useful. So I took my son to Gracie Baja and I stayed just to like take the class with him. And I just loved it. I started going all the time. Max hated it. My son didn't like it at all, but
he
for
quit.
whatever.
He quit the gym in the end, or the sport?
Yeah, I mean, he knows a little bit of jiu-jitsu. Like we've made him go over the years because he's my son. So every once in a while I get a bee in my bonnet and force him to go to jiu-jitsu or something, but he never loved it. He never liked sports either. And so I kind of had to accept like maybe when he's 27, he'll become an athlete,
Maybe then, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because then, yeah. And now your husband is he's a coach as well and a trainer, so he's around 2 people that are very much involved in the combat sports. And how is that for him? He doesn't feel the urge to be a fighter himself, or do you even want him to?
No, I don't want to like force him to do whatever. But when he was in high school, we all lived in Arizona. And Joe was the general manager at the lab, and he like got Max a job there. Max was like the front desk person, and he did a pretty good job working. And we made him take jujitsu a couple times, but he just never fell in love with it. He doesn't like to sweat. You know what I mean? So he was like, and I think he would rather be outside hiking or whatever, riding his bike. So anyway, he never loved it, but he's had plenty of opportunities to practice,
Yeah. And I'm always curious about just for you, having come this far and seeing now that it seems like you had this mindset shift of like, hey, time is running out. I need to start vocalizing what I want, like because the way for those who don't know, like the way the UFC ranking system works and the way they give out title shots is not always to the best fighters with the better records, or there's a whole There's also the business aspect of it, who puts the most asses in seats, So, and now you say you have you should be the front runner based on your performances, right? Based on your achievements. Like, talk a bit about that.
I mean, well, yeah.
So when did that shift happen? What changed into in terms of you vocalizing it more now?
Nothing's changed. I've always been a pretty vocal person. I've always been a pretty emotional person. Like, I don't think that that's new. I just didn't feel I was in a position to challenge for the title before, like I had won in the division and then I went 1-1. I think when I beat, like, the first fight in the division, the night the division opened, I beat Barb and she was ranked like number 3. And that's when I was like, okay, like, let's talk about a title shot. So I fought Sajara, and that really was kind of considered like a number 1 contender fight. And then I lost. So I was like, well, and then I took a bunch of time off. I had an injury and stuff. And when I came back, I fought Mara Barella. She was ranked number 12. You can't ask for a title shot if you're 2-1 in the division with, your latest win is over number 12 ranked girl. And then I fought Anthony. That was a super close fight, like very, very close. It was the second fight with my new camp. And then what? Oh, I fought Roxanne after that, and she was ranked number 5. So I thought, like, okay, now I'll be in the top 5 for sure. Like, we should be getting there in line for a title shot. Like, there's other women in the division. If they went on a 3-fight win streak over all ranked opponents, like they would be getting a title shot. And so I thought, okay, for sure we'll be in the top 5. But then they ranked me number 5, and like they ranked Cynthia above me, I think, and just started getting shady. I was like, what the fuck? And then I was supposed to fight Cynthia, and in my mind, at least, that was the number 1 contender fight. I thought maybe not. Who knows what would have happened? But she ended up pulling because of COVID. I ended up fighting somebody else. I had a bunch of injuries. Cynthia ended up fighting Chukagian and losing, so now she's not the number 1 contender. But for some reason, she's still ranked really high, which I don't get. She's 1-1 in the division. Like, she had a really shitty performance against Chukagian. I don't know. To me, I'm like that.
I feel like they're trying to force that fight again, because you were meant to fight Cynthia, and
I would fight Cynthia. I agreed to fight Cynthia. Like, I was at the fight.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. After that fight, after the fight in Abu Dhabi, I did have some injuries that I had accumulated over the year. I fought 4 times in like 13 months or something, or 15 months, something like that. And I had some injuries that we really needed to pay attention to. I'd cut weight 4 times in the same amount of time, And so Cynthia was kind of demanding a fight on a certain day. She wanted to like turn around and have it right away. And I was like, whoa, bitch, like I just cut weight, did an actual fucking fist fight. Like, all you've done is rest for the last 2 weeks. Like, I don't owe her anything, And so she had a big fit about that and decided to fight Chukagian, which was a bad choice. It's a bad idea, Yeah.
I didn't expect it to be that dominant, although I do think Chukagian is a very good fighter. Very top
Chukagian's an
fighter.
Yeah. I mean, Chukagian's an excellent fighter, but everybody knows what she's going to do. She's going to jab, keep her reach, circle, jab, keep her length, circle, maybe throw a high kick, circle the other way. Like, I don't know what Cynthia was thinking when she took that
Maybe she
fight.
was, because when Chukagian, this is after Chukagian fought Valentina, right? But then again, Valentina is Valentina, and she was there dominated on the ground, and I guess Cynthia was thinking she could take her down and just keep her there, right?
Yeah, but Cynthia's a 150. Look how soft she looks at 125.
Yeah, that's another thing. Like, I was wondering but maybe it's too late now if you've ever thought of just jumping between weight classes, if you're even capable of doing that.
Which weight classes? 135 and 125?
Yeah. Like, how?
I don't know. That good. I went 1 and 3, 135, and maybe that's like a skill thing, but I don't really, those girls are big at 135. Now that they have the 125 division and all the smaller girls dropped out of 135, the girls left at 135 are big. Jermaine Durandamy is enormous. Amanda Nunes, huge. Holly Holm, she's tall, and those girls are big that fight at 135. So Raquel Pennington and Marion Renau, like, those girls are all thick and, strong. So I make 125. It's not super easy, but it's definitely doable. I feel like I'm in really good shape 125. So Maybe if there was like a last minute chance to fight the champ at 135,
Okay.
maybe.
Yeah. Because I was gonna ask you. I mean, I don't know if you have the answer to Amanda. So they're struggling to find anyone. I don't know if
I don't know. I have a really hard head. I have a really good chin. Maybe that's the answer to Amanda.
Probably. That's another thing. Like people should know. Like Lauren Murphy's never been finished. You've been calling for but that's what I find also a very interesting thing going into Valentina, but also any fighter. The cool thing about fighting is that there's that X factor that people have that people can't explain. There's like some people just can't get finished. There's certain people that are just lanky, but they have that knockout power. There's people that are huge that have insane punching power that don't have the knockout punch. And you know, that keeps things interesting. I think you, especially in this division, you have the power advantage, I think, over anyone in terms of just physical strength. You know?
There are a lot of intangibles in fighting that you can't really measure. I think I'm the toughest woman in the division. I really believe that with all my heart, that I'm the toughest woman in the division. It's like I'm not an easy fight for anybody, and I'm good everywhere, really. I do hit really hard. You know, my striking's getting more fluid and it's getting more accurate, but the power's always been there. My ground game is really good. Like, especially like fighters, my top game is pretty nasty. I feel pretty good everywhere. I can keep myself safe in positions that I'm not, you know, super dominant in. I can dominate in positions that dominant, you know? So I feel like I'm tough. I'm a tough fight for anybody. And I'm just mentally, physically tough. Like I do have like a really good chin. I do have a hard head. I am super durable. And that's something I think that gives me a real advantage over a lot of these girls.
You know, I made a lot of money. I made some money on you. Not a lot of money, but like the odds were really nice on you to finish your last opponent.
Oh, really?
Did you know what the odds were like for a finish?
What were the odds for a finish?
It was like 6-1.
Really? I was like,
this is straightforward to me. Like, I'm gonna jump on that. I thought so. I'm part of this like we're a group of friends that we just like share our picks sometimes, you know, in the group. And I was like, jump on it. And they're like, I don't know. Women's MMA, there's not many finishes, you know, like.
Yeah.
Well, and then they were teasing me, and I remember this message like, if Lauren Murphy loses, I'm gonna shit on my neighbor's dog. I was telling him that, and then they're teasing me like Shekarova's gonna win, you know. Then I was like, look at that, she consumed her with cutleries. That's what I wrote. I remember, and it was like 6-1. Like, come on, like nobody jumped on it. It was straightforward to me. I don't know.
That's hysterical. I didn't know that. Otherwise, all my coaches probably would have put a bet.
Yeah. I mean, you were still the favorite. Like, you were still a sizable favorite, right? But for the finish, it was, you know.
Yeah. That's hysterical. Because when we met her in Abu Dhabi, I was shocked at how small she was. I was like, all these 115ers trying to come up to 125.
Yeah, but then it's like maybe you're not building functional weight. You know, like you're not, you know, because you're 125 of muscle.
Yes. And
a lot of times, like especially on these short notice fights, what people forget is these people are putting on, you know, maybe water weight, maybe it's fat, maybe it's not, you know, it's not. You can't build up that quickly.
Yeah.
You know?
I think there's just a lot of people out there that don't know how to cut weight. So I have a really good nutritionist though, and I trust him a lot, and he's a genius. So I cut a fair amount of weight, but I believe in the way that he recovers me from the weight. He's very, very good. The best, I think, in the business.
Cool. That was on the list. I was saying like you're always shouting him out, and how much of your performances or how much credit do you give them? You know, the nutritionists.
Dude, a lot. So there's two guys. Matteo Capodaglio is my nutritionist, and he's changed my life, like literally changed my life and my career. He's a fucking genius. He's just so smart, and he's a hard worker. He loves to win too, which is one thing I really like about him. He's very, very competitive. I love that. He's a doctor of pharmacy, so he knows exactly how, like, all the supplements that I take affect me. I can call him with any questions about anything having to do with supplements or medications, and he knows. And then on top of that, he's a nutritionist. And so he studied for quite a while in Italy, and then he came to the States, and he just has a little bit different way of doing things than anybody else I've ever worked with. Like, I get to eat a ton of carbs and pasta and steak and stuff throughout my camp. Even fight week, sometimes eating pasta. So
he trained in Italy, so yeah.
Yeah, he's really amazing. And then the other guy is Andy Galpin, and he's I believe he's a muscle physiologist, but I'm not sure what his like official degree is in, exercise physiology, something like that. But he runs an athletic department at UC Fullerton, and he's just incredible. Dr. Andy Galpin, I called him first when I lost to Sajara. After my last loss, I called Dr. Andy, and he's the one that hooked me up with Matteo. He gave me a whole new strength and conditioning routine, and that really like kicked things off for me. So that's what's made me an athlete in my later years, is those guys.
Exactly, because I'm trying to put the pieces together, like, because throughout this growth, you probably eventually, when you lose or you face adversity or a difficult fight, you sort of learn as you go what parts you were missing. Is it technique, was it nutrition or anything? So is it like after the Eubanks fight, was that the first time you started working with a nutritionist to that degree, or what were you doing before?
Before I was living in Arizona when I trained to fight Sajara and had that camp, and then the five or six fights before that, I was living in Arizona. I didn't really work with a nutritionist. I mean, I had people that I had worked with like intermittently, but nobody very serious. Sometimes it would just be like another fighter that I trusted, or another fighter that had a good weight cut. I would just listen to what they had to say and kind of do that, which looking back now, I'm like, oh, that was dumb. But that's how it kind of goes. Like I wasn't making a lot of money. I was pretty broke, and I didn't know what I was missing, to tell you the truth. I didn't think to myself like, oh, I lost this fight, I need a nutritionist. I didn't like that. I hadn't put that together. I lost that fight with Sajara. I was really unhappy. I think I had gone like 2-4 in my last 6. My confidence was like at an all-time low. I felt like I was old or something. I just didn't know what the problem was. And so I called Andy, who I'd never met. I didn't know who he was. My husband had met him one time, and my husband said, Lauren, you need to call this guy. He can help you. And so I called Andy. I didn't have any idea who he was, but he said he was like a doctor, and that, he had worked with a lot of high level fighters. And he said, well, I remember now. I wanted to go on a intermittent fasting diet. I thought maybe that would fix it. I didn't know. And so I said, hey, I want to do intermittent fasting. What do you think? And he said, well, what problem are you trying to fix? And I said, well, I guess I never thought about it that way, but I thought about it for a while. I said, I get really tired when I wrestle or when I have to do anything explosive. I get really tired. And I know that sounds stupid, because of course you get tired, but in MMA, that's all we do, is we're explosive all the time. And so we talked for a bit, and he said, you know what? I don't think that you're getting old. I told him I'd only been an athlete for about 8 or 9 years, and he couldn't believe it. He said, you never played a sport growing up? I said, no, I never played a sport growing up. He said, this is incredible. He said,
yeah, that is actually crazy when you think about it. Yeah.
He said, athletically, you're very young. And I told him that I'd only been training about 4 years when I got into the UFC, and he was like his mind was blown. And so he said, listen, there's not a problem here. He said, what you need to do is you need to fix your diet, because you're carb dependent, which I had no idea what that meant. And then he said, and you need to change your strength and conditioning routine. Those 2 things. And I said, that's it. Cause I could do that. That's totally doable. You're not asking me to grow taller or have different genetics or something. Like those are 2 things. Roll. And he said, yeah, I said, I got a guy for you. You can call Matteo Capodoglio. He's going to help you with your diet. And so I called Matteo. I was one of Matteo's first clients in the US. And Andy and Matteo worked together for about a year before I fought again, because I had a foot injury. And in that year, those guys changed my life. They changed everything.
Were you always this aware of, of yourself and what to change in your life? Like what things were wrong, or at least the ability to recognize that something is up and I need to change it?
Yeah, I knew something needed to change, because I was 8-0. And then I got to the UFC, I went 2-4, and I felt bad. Like I didn't know what the problem was, but I knew that I felt old, tired. I felt worn out a lot.
But at least there was the fact that you knew you had that in you, because maybe other people would say, oh, okay, I'm in the highest level organization in the world. The competition is just better. Maybe I'm just not good enough. But you knew, at least you knew you could beat these people.
I was hoping, yeah.
Yeah, more
I didn't,
hoping than.
but that's why I called Andy, because maybe Andy would have told me, yeah, you're just kind of old, age catching up to you. And that's kind of almost what I was expecting. But he said, no, you're not old. He said, don't tell yourself that. He was like, you've only been an athlete for 8 years. He said, generally athletes have 10 years at the highest level. He said, you haven't even been at the highest level for that long.
Mm-hmm.
So, the things about fixing my strength and conditioning program and changing my diet, I thought I was eating healthy, but I was eating all the wrong shit at all the wrong times and wasn't eating that as well as I thought, Anyway, I think those two things has just changed everything for me. And it's really incredible. So I started feeling a lot better. And then, around the same time, just by chance, I went to Texas. I left Arizona and I went to Texas to go train with Montana De La Rosa, who's also a UFC flyweight. We had met on The Ultimate Fighter. So she called me and she said, "We come be a sparring partner for my camp." I said, yeah. So I went out there and I loved it. I loved Texas. I met Bob Perez out there. He was cornering her for that fight. And so I met him and just hit it off. We got along really, really well. And so I said, you know what? I think we need to move to Texas. My old coach was out there. I wanted to work with Bob. So it just seemed like all signs were pointing to Texas. And that was the other thing that changed everything for me, working with a team that I have the best team in the world now. I'm convinced.
Awesome. Yeah. And now you were training with Dean Thomas, and that's in St. Louis. How much of, because there's always, people can be on the fence about whether, should I change teams or should I do my jiu-jitsu here and then my striking there, or, how much of it is, are you more aware now about where to pick and choose, your training? Add to your weaknesses or, improve your strengths?
Kind of. So, like going out and training with Dean and Jillian, that was just like, because Jillian and I know each other from Tough. And so
Jillian is a top level grappler. Just so for people who don't know, she's way up there. Yeah.
Yeah, she's really, really amazing. She's a very, very good grappler. Mm-hmm. And Dean's obviously very well known for being a great coach. And just I've watched Jillian since we were on Tough. I just love her. So it wasn't like a big deal to go out there and train with them for a week. And it's always good to have another set of eyes on you so that Dean can give me some advice or some direction. But I got to pick his brain a little bit about some habits that I stuff. So that it was really cool. And then come back to Houston with my team and my coaches. And out here, I train at a lot of different gyms. I train at like 4 or 5 different gyms out here. And I love it. I feel like I'm getting the best of everything.
Okay. Nice. Cause I grew up in Jordan in the Middle East. And now there's a lot of fighters, like if people are opening up to it more as a profession, there's a lot of talent coming out of there. But I think there's, people struggle in figuring out whether they have to leave the country. But then again, if you don't have money, maybe you can't. And,
Yeah.
Yeah. What advice would you have to someone trying to make it out of Jordan where, there's training, but there isn't really maybe that network of fighters that you can just, go talk to at that level?
I've never been to Jordan, so it's hard to say. Mostly what I tell people when they start MMA is find a team you trust and be consistent, so just that's normally the advice I give to everybody, but I don't know because I've never been to Jordan, so I don't think about like, moving there, but yeah, as I've grown in the sport, I think the team around me has gotten better and better. It takes a while, and I've tried to surround myself with the best throughout my career. And I just think the bar has gotten raised higher and higher and higher as I've gotten to a higher and higher level, So I feel very confident in the team I have around me now.
And then so it takes you, it's like with exercising or training your conditioning, where like the barrier or the limit that you can reach, like where you would get tired, once you break through that, you don't drop under a certain level. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm trying to say, like, maybe now you're at a certain level that you won't drop under a certain level. You can only improve.
Yeah.
because of those
Yeah.
little things that you're picking and choosing and adding to it. Was there ever a time where you really thought like, before like this, before UFC probably, or that you wanted to quit, or like this is not a career for me, or you didn't have prospects in it?
Yeah, I think when I went 2 and 4, when I was living in Arizona, I was like, I was thinking that like maybe I'm not good enough to be here. Because I was 8-0, and everybody said I was tough. I won the Invicta belt. I won a belt in my home state, and then I lost my first 2 fights in the UFC, but they were against like Liz Carmouche and Sarah McMahon, and one was a split decision and one was a decision. It was really, really boring. It was a terrible fight, but I thought like I'm right there. I'm right there with these girls, even though they're losses. Like I feel like I'm like right there. It's not that they're blowing me out of the water. They're so much better than me. Like they might be winning right now, and maybe I have a little bit of growing up to do, but like I just need to grow a little bit. It's not about not being good enough. So I think I thought that, and then I won a fight. I was really happy, and then I fought Caitlin Chukagian. It was like 2016 or 2017, and I fought her on really short notice. I had a really terrible weight cut. It was really, really bad, and it was a close fight, but I still lost. I felt like I gave it 100%. Like I really felt like I had really pulled out my best performance in that fight.
Like going back, knowing what you know now, you would still probably lose that fight. You mean?
No, I mean I've gotten better since then, but yeah.
But if you go back to old Lauren,
it wasn't a case of like, oh, I just
like
didn't
not a regret. It's like your learning experience more.
Yeah, like I can sit here and tell you I gave everything I had in that fight. I did my best, and like I came up short in that fight, and and then there was a time where I was like, I don't know, the UFC like didn't want to re-sign me. I like the fights had been boring, and so I kind of did think like maybe this isn't for me. But everybody feels that after they lose. I think most fighters feel that way at least for a little bit after they lose a fight, and so yeah, sometimes I even think that before a fight. I'll be like, okay, this is the last one I'm gonna do because it's so stressful.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that for a little bit.
I have it going into sparring now sometimes. I'm getting like, why am I doing this? I'm not a professional fighter, sometimes. And some of them are, semi-pros and stuff. So yeah. So I get that, and at that level, I mean, people hit harder. People, at your level, yeah. No, but this mindset, it. I always think like people always go through, there's always a moment in someone's life where they decided to make a change. There's always that adversity that you go through that completely changes you. I think 360, or is it 180 degrees, whatever. Yeah. And you completely become a different person. Like, did you have that as well?
No, I don't think so. Not like a complete change. About 2 years ago, I started believing in myself more. Like that, I started getting my confidence back. But again, that came because I started feeling so much better because of the strength and conditioning and the nutrition. Like when I changed those things, I started feeling better. I started having more energy. I felt younger. I didn't feel so tired all the time. And then I started feeling more confident and started believing in myself more. I started having better performances in the gym. My coaches, like out here in Houston, they really helped me build confidence. They love watching me learn. They know I'm a hard worker. They respect me. Like all of this, it's like multifaceted. There wasn't just one day where I woke up and was like,
okay, yeah. Well, not one day. I mean, like this is but you're kind of describing it now. It's like the experiences you go through. You sort of becoming more self-aware, I guess, then about which little details you chip away at, to become a better person. Actually, and fighter, I guess.
Self-aware, like I started meditating, and that was a big difference too. About 2 or 3 years ago, I started practicing meditation, and that really has actually changed my life quite a bit. So that I'm glad you said that, because being a little more self-aware has definitely helped.
Really, so it really made that big of a difference?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, meditation has changed my life.
People are recommending it all the time. I mean, I hear it
Mhm.
constantly in every profession. Really.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not great, but high performers, I feel like can access their best performances through meditation. So, like being able to access a flow state and stuff like that, meditation really, really helps with that. Um, yeah, meditation and breathing. That's another thing that I really started practicing. And Mateo helps me with that, actually. My nutritionist, he helps with that. And so does Andy. So I'm reading a really cool book right now by I forget the guy. I think it's James Nestor. I think it's James Nestor.
I'm
And
gonna write it down as well.
breath.
James Nestor Breath. Wait, I've seen that book before.
Great book.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. What do you like? What do you think you would be doing if you weren't fighting? Like, so I think the UFC obviously has changed the landscape for MMA. If it wouldn't be there, it wouldn't have been as lucrative a business, right? And
Mhm.
you hear more and more, like even Khabib lately. Or yesterday, he said that he was thanking Dana White about providing these opportunities not for him but just for anyone who wants to make a profession out of this, right? But what if we lived in an alternate universe where you didn't have that big of an organization? Like, what would you be doing? What do you think you would be doing? What interests do you have?
I don't know. Like these days, all I do is fight.
Mhm.
All I want to do is fight. Hang out with my dog. My family's important to me. My husband and my son are really important to me, and having those relationships. I guess if there was no such thing as MMA or something, maybe in another life I would have been a lawyer. I like to argue with
Yeah.
people. I like to compete. Plus, you can make some money. I'm competitive too. Like I didn't really know MMA came along, but before I was in MMA, I was in nursing school, but I don't think I would have made a very good nurse. I didn't like it that much. So I'm glad I'm a nurse.
Didn't like dealing with people, or
Yeah, nurses, at least here, nurses are assholes.
oh yeah,
Yeah, I went through all this schooling, like 4 years of school, and I was a good student. I had like scholarships and straight A's
okay,
and stuff. I was a good student. But I got to the clinical portion where you go, to the hospital and work with nurses as a
mm.
student, and they were all assholes. And then, the patients and stuff, I just didn't realize how unhappy sick people actually are. A lot of those
Mm.
patients were really unhappy people. They treated the nurses badly. The nurses treated the students badly. The doctors treated the nurses badly.
Wow.
The patients' families would be bitching at the nurses because, they want their loved one to feel better or be
Mm.
safe or whatever it is. I was like, fuck this.
It's too much. I'm gonna go
Yeah.
beat people up instead of fixing them. You know that.
Yeah, I did
Yeah.
take some fights when I was in nursing school. One time, my whole nursing
Also,
class. Yeah, I came to I had a championship fight in Alaska, and a bunch of people from the nursing class came, and they all got me a card and stuff. It was pretty cool, but I ended up dropping out of nursing school. It just wasn't for me. I was going through a pretty hard time.
sorry, the line.
I was
The
just
line is cutting out.
no, it's all good. But nursing school. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe but anyway, I've thought about law school. I thought that'd be cool.
We could still maybe it's too late, Nick. Hopefully so wait because you're still I was wondering what you like, what's still driving you. What I mean, now obviously there's a title shot that you could go for and stuff, but what are other things that are like driving you to stay in it?
I like to get better. I love to learn. I want to know like what my body can do. I want to see how far I can go. I couldn't even imagine quitting right now and then thinking for the rest of my life, like, I wonder how far I could have gone. Like I'm going to run this till the wheels fall off. I like to fight. I like to compete. I have the best job in the world. I don't know. Being a fighter is the best job in the world. I wake up every day. I do whatever I want. I wear sweatpants all day long. I go to I work out with my friends, and they're hard workouts. Sometimes like it is hard being a fighter and it's tiring and your body hurts, but truly, it's like the best job in the world. I don't answer to anybody. I have a lot of fun with what I'm doing. I honestly cannot believe I get to spend my adult life as a fighter in the UFC. It's so fucking cool, man.
It is pretty crazy. It's amazing. I mean,
Yeah,
the regular person would say, what about the getting punched in the face part, you know?
it's not that bad. It's
Yeah.
really not that bad. I mean, when we're in the gym and stuff, it's not like I'm getting the shit kicked out of me to where I hate it.
Mhm.
You know,
It's just those couple of times a year that you're fighting that, you know. Yeah.
not even like getting beat up isn't that bad. You can
Mhm.
get used to beat up. All fighters I think most fighters get used to getting beat up. So, I mean, I've heard stories. Okay, like there was just a story that came out recently about some dude that ended up with brain damage from his, fighting career. And he talked about how they would just beat the shit out of each other in the gym and head kick, knock each other out, all this kind of stuff. Like we don't train like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
So it's not this like horrible event every time I go to the gym where I'm getting the shit kicked out of me. We do a lot of drilling. We do a lot of learning. It's like fighting really is like chess. It takes a lot of practice. It's a really beautiful, athletic. It's beautiful and athletic, and it can be violent, but for me, it's mostly a learning process and it's a challenge. Like I love a good challenge, and I want to see how far I could go.
Yeah, I think if I noticed this in MMA training. So I've never grappled. I've only done strike. I have a background in Taekwondo and boxing. I still box a lot, but not like competitively anymore. With MMA, there's so many different ways to get injured. So people take it, more easy on each other, and they try to teach each other because there's so many aspects to the game to learn.
Yeah.
And there's so many people around that, even I noticed for me, like there's people that are kickboxing, there's Muay Thai people, there's people that have Kuksul. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's like a Korean grappling sport. And no matter what your level is, there's often someone that could be lower level than you or whatever, and overall that has that one thing that they do a lot better than you that you can learn from.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's why, and for some reason, like, and this, a lot of boxing gyms go wrong with it, and a lot of boxing gyms, it's where they go hard all the time, and I'm like, why? What do you have to prove? Yeah.
I work out at a boxing gym, Muay Thai and boxing, and there's a ton of really good boxers there. Just like world champions, world title contenders. They have a lot of really, really good boxers there. And I watch them spar. I get to watch them spar. They spar like 2 to 3 times a week, and they spar hard. They put on their headgear and they go pretty hard with each other, And so I'm like, damn, I'm glad we don't do that in MMA. Spar hard. Sometimes I'll get in there and spar with them. Obviously, like the guys like have to, they don't go all their power on me or anything like that. But I'll get in there and spar with some of the boxers sometimes. It is just different. Boxing is very, very difficult. It's a lot harder.
Yeah. No, it's, and so how often do you train with men?
A lot. I usually train with, guys that are smaller. I have one training partner out here though. His name's Jacob Berry, and he fights at 170, I think. And he's been one of my best training partners. He's just skilled enough that he can like go lightly. He's very fluid with his movement. He's super athletic, and I'm pretty sure you guys will see him in the UFC in the next 5 years. So, but he's one of my best training partners. Then we have a couple other women. It's just rare to find women that are your size and skill level. Like Jessica Aguilar's out here with us in Houston, and she's very, very skilled. She's a very skilled fighter. She's been fighting for like 15 years, I think. She's very, very good, and she's good in all areas, but she weighs like 115 pounds. So
Okay.
when we go together, she's so tiny and I'm so big that it for both of us, it's not the most realistic look, So that could be difficult, but it's rare to find female training partners that are your skill level and size.
It's really cool that this is MMA is the first sport where there's that level of equality between men and women. And I always tell people like this is because it's always about like there's all these other sports that women are demanding to get paid as much as the men do, but they don't draw that audience, right? And that's always the argument. Like it's like but with MMA it doesn't matter because in the end, obviously there's just the physical differences. But in terms of technique and skill, I mean, the top women can be just as skilled as the top men, It's just that there's physical differences like that, So what you get to see is still a high level fight.
Yeah, I agree, and it's really nice.
And with pay also, by the way. So I guess.
Huh?
And also
What?
with pay, correct?
I'm sorry. Say it again.
Also with fighter pay, correct?
Oh,
it's very
yeah.
close. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm super happy when I get to tell people that in my sport, the women make as much as the men, like exactly as much as the men. We're not treated any differently. We don't have, I mean, we have to wear like different uniforms, but they're not different uniforms. Do you know what I mean? Like we have to wear a sport, but it's not a different uniform. We don't.
That'd be hilarious if the men would wear that too. Like.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So, I mean, everything's the same for us. The rules are the same. The length of the rounds is the same, which is it's not like that in boxing. In boxing, I think Clarissa Shields just went on Joe Rogan and she was talking about like the inequalities in boxing and how women are treated differently. I know for sure in the Olympics, they have shorter rounds and I think they have to wear headgear, and the men have longer rounds and don't have to wear headgear. And that, what kind of message does that send? What the hell is that supposed to, you know what I mean? What the hell is that
it's funny, but then you have someone like Stephen A. Smith as well, who comes from being a boxing analyst, more than he's new to MMA, and his comments, that for some reason that boxing audience, and it's not even the audience, I think it's more boxing media that still has that stigma of like, maybe women shouldn't hit each other that hard, give them headgear or whatever, yeah. But that was a great interview. Actually, I recommend anyone to anyone who's into any sport to watch Clarissa Shields on Joe Rogan. I don't know what, but you know what I did see recently. I think it was Eddie Hearn. I think it was Matchroom Boxing. They just announced a all-female headlining event, like is the main event and the co-main event was women's boxers. Cool. Yeah, so I think probably Clarissa has a lot to do with it. It's sort of starting to shift, and I think boxing has been in a chase with MMA over the last few years. Like they know they have to follow that blueprint that Dana has probably set with UFC in order to survive, and it includes this.
Yeah. Well, so because I really respect Dana. People always like play that clip of him saying that women would never fight in the UFC, but Dana's actually done some. But Dana's done some pretty badass shit. Like he didn't just let women into the UFC. Ronda Rousey was a fucking star. It's not like he just let women in and then kept us like to the sideline or like something like that. When Dana had women come into the UFC, he was like, they're here, they've arrived. He made women main events, co-main events. He pushed females to be stars. Do you know what I mean? Like he promoted a lot, and they really had a lot of success from the minute they were allowed in the UFC, which really says something. We're all paid the same. And then just watching the way he worked through the pandemic and like I fought more in 2020 than I've ever fought in my life. And it's just incredible. So I actually really respect Dana. And I think that sometimes the media gives him a bad rap. Like they kind of get on his case a little bit, but respect the guy.
You always need something to hate on. And he does say some outlandish shit sometimes, but I mean, but I like the unpredictability as well. But a lot of people might not know that the Ronda Rousey, that was in 2012. That's the first time women have ever fought in a professional MMA bout. That was televised at least.
2013, yeah.
2013 right? Even? 2013 perhaps. Yeah. So that's very recent. But what's cool about that, and I don't know if you realize this or ever think about that that means that you are part of the first generation of top female fighters. So that could make your legacy a lot bigger than if you would have fought, in a few decades.
Yeah. Well,
do you ever sit and think about that?
No.
This is legend stuff that you can do.
I just don't really think about it like that because, like, the women that came before me, there's a generation before me. Like, I consider Roxanne Modafferi like the generation before me.
Oh yeah, but so, I mean, she's still active, so I mean, she also belongs in that conversation, and she's still ranked.
Yeah, she's a badass. Roxanne's the shit. I really like her.
Yeah, I love her whole thing, her whole character, her shtick.
There's gonna be women that come after us that are legends in their own way. Like Joanna Jędrzejczyk is like a legend to me. I don't know. I guess. Might be the same generation. We might, I don't know. It's hard, but women like Macy Barber for sure is like a generation after me, and she's going to be a star in her own right. So yeah, it's cool to be a part of this. It's cool to be a part of women's MMA. It's a cool time to be in MMA in general.
I think I worded it wrong. I probably meant era. Because you're all
Era?
fighting the same era, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a good word. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. No, good luck with everything. Thanks for coming on. I know you you deactivated Twitter, right? We don't use Twitter either. Like
no, I'm often on there. Like I have a love-hate relationship with Twitter. Sometimes I'm on it and I'm like, it's good. It's just social media. And sometimes I'm like, fuck, Twitter's like a cesspool. That
Twitter
I think
sucks. Twitter, let's be honest. That's
terrible.
yeah.
What social media platform you usually use? Instagram?
Just Instagram. I mean, Facebook automatically. Like we automatically promote on Facebook through Instagram. But yeah, it's Instagram now. I think
Instagram way better.
Instagram is more, yeah.
Yeah.
Because also you can go to people's profiles. There's actually, for a lot of them though, photos there. Some of them, a lot of the haters don't have photos, but I mean, you can just call them out. You know.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to do that because there's an episode that could be controversial that I recorded like recently.
Oh really?
And yeah, that was a crazy story, man. So that's actually. Yeah, that was an actress from Jordan who was like in this series, the first Netflix show, first Arabic Netflix show.
Oh, cool!
And it was very it showed the middle class, upper class kind of high school where they were also like still hooking up and drinking and partying and all that. And a couple of these scenes sparked major controversy amongst the conservatives.
Oh,
and
wow!
They started sending her death threats, and ironically. Like, because one scene which was supposed to be empowering more to women, where like she was making out with her boyfriend, and he tried to unbutton her pants. She was telling him slow down, and it didn't happen. Then she received a lot of rape threats too, and then she deactivated. I think she left the country for a bit, and this is the first time she opened up about it, and it's a very powerful story. And yeah,
I hate to hear about stuff like that. I mean, yeah, that's awful. But
hopefully you'll get to see it. Twitter is a cesspool, and that's where all the haters are at. I find it like Twitter is now an abandoned building, and and that's where like all these the trash of society sort of accumulates there. Aside from I
think of it as like the social outhouse. Everybody just goes there to shit out their opinions and thinks their shit don't stink and fling it at others and leave. Like I'm just. Twitter's a cesspool.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I use it to follow live news or something. That's it. And there's just always, you have to scroll through a bunch of hate and useless like racism just to get to that one thing you're looking for. Always.
Yeah.
So it's good. It's good you're not too active on there. But let's start #free Lauren. And good luck. Good luck. I look forward to your next fight and look forward to see where you take your career further.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you having me on.